Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and to another video. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm doing a triple unboxing of all the items that I picked up in Rome last year, more specifically last summer. So these videos have been waiting to be shared for a while now. One of the items which I'll share last is from Rome, but I actually got it before I went on my trip, and I'll explain how that worked out later. But the first thing I picked up in the city is in this little box. It's a version of something that I have previously unboxed on the channel, but that ended up being a fail. So if you watch that video, you'll know immediately what it is. It's definitely something that I had been looking to add for a while because I have a very specific purpose for it in my collection, particularly when it comes to my travels. I was hoping to get it as part of like a seasonal collection because they typically have really nice and unique designs. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I noticed that a lot of the seasonal variations of this piece tend to not be customizable. For my purposes, I needed to be customizable, so ultimately, because I didn't want to put it off any longer, I did end up going with a more classic version, but sort of with a twist. You'll see what I mean in a sec. So the first item I bought on my trip to Rome last July was the Louis Vuitton passport holder in reverse monogram canvas. Now, I know that this colorway is not the most popular, though I think it's really cool, really unique, a bit different from the classic monogram. One of my dream pieces right now is actually the can bag in the reverse monogram, so I like it. But because I couldn't find a seasonal version that I really liked or that was customizable, and because I didn't want to wait any longer before buying this item, it essentially came down to the classic monogram or the reverse monogram, and I went with the latter because the essay that was helping me made a really good point. So as you might be able to tell, I've started my hot stamp collection, and my goal is to get a city stamp in every city in which I shop at Louis Vuitton. So essentially what the essay who was helping me pointed out was that because the interior of the reverse monogram passport holder is black versus the interior of the classic monogram passport holder, which is brown, the gold stamps would show up better against the black background than the brown background. And so essentially that was my deciding factor and why I went with the reverse monogram over the classic monogram. And I'm actually super happy with this decision. I've seen what the gold stamps look like on the brown interior of the classic monogram passport holder. And of course, while you can see them, I definitely prefer how they show up against the black. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're making a similar purchase. Other than that, this is a passport holder, so it has this large pocket along the back, essentially made up of two flying pockets where you can slide in your boarding passes as well as your passport itself. Of course, we all know that when you actually need your passport, you have to take it out of the holder anyway, so it's not really useful. Okay, not useful, but it's not really practical. Only for the fact that you have to take out your passport from the holder every time you need it at the airport, because otherwise you can store your passport, your boarding passes, your luggage tags. It does have 4 credit card slots on the left flap as well as a flat pocket on the bottom of the left flap. So it's definitely useful, usable, and I guess a convenient way to keep all of your travel stuff together, but it's definitely not necessary. I'm not going to use it for all that stuff anyway. I'm just here for the stamps, especially now that you can barely get your passport stamped anymore. This is my way of compensating for that, you know? At least that's my excuse. I have since gotten a third stamp, which you'll end up seeing in one of my future unboxings. I don't know if it's going to be the next video or the video after, but I will show you that soon. But as of filming this video, I had 2 stamps, one from the Rome Fiumicino airport store and one from the Rome flagship store. The airport stamp is the one with the plane flying over a map of Italy, and the one that I got from the flagship store is the stamp of the Colosseum. Because of when I bought the passport holder, I had to get the Colosseum stamp put in first, so I had them place it on the right flap because I wanted my official first stamp to be from the first store that I ever shopped in, and I wanted that stamp to be placed on the left flap. So that's why I had the airport stamp placed on the left flap, because that was the first ever Louis Vuitton store that I shopped in. So essentially, not only do I want a city stamp from each city that I shop in, but I also want them to be positioned in order in which I shop. Please don't judge me. I know that sounds kind of crazy. Something really crazy that I almost did was buy one of the fashionista Vivienne bag charms. Literally, as I was walking out of the door after purchasing this passport cover, I decided to ask the SA about them. I don't know why. And then before I could think straight, I was putting down a deposit for one, but because they were out of stock, it was supposed to be shipped in from Milan. And while these bag charms are super cute, as soon as I left the store, it was like instant regret. Not because I don't like them, but because it was such an impulse purchase and because it would have been like $1,800. But luckily, nothing ever happened with that because the SA messaged me saying that it wouldn't arrive before we were scheduled to leave the city. And so I got a refund. But I was so mad at myself because of the currency fluctuations. I ended up losing $100 on that. Ugh. Anyway, you live and you learn, right? Unlike the last item, which I bought at the wrong flagship store, this item, which you might be able to tell by the bag, I purchased at the Rome Fiumicino Airport store on my way out of Italy. It was definitely not a need. I honestly just wanted an excuse to ask them for an additional hot stamp, and having heard that, that some stores have become stricter about adding more than one hot stamp to a small leather good, I figured that buying something would make them more receptive to my request, despite it being a free service anyway. Luckily, they were, but there's definitely more to that story, and I'll tell you that after. But this is the Rosalie coin purse in black empreinte leather with gold hardware. It's definitely bigger than I thought it would be, and that's not a complaint. I thought it would be a bit slimmer just based on, the photos and the videos I had seen of it before. So it wasn't really until I saw it in person that I realized just how much it could fit. So it was kind of a pleasant surprise. It has multiple card slots inside, then it has a big open center and a zipped pouch. So despite being super compact, it definitely carries a lot. The only downside to that is that it can get a bit bulky. Something that stood out to me as someone who has multiple empreinte leather pieces is that the empreinte itself on this piece is super deep. Like, it is so much more noticeable, I would say. It's not that it's not noticeable on my other pieces, but I mean, it just stands out a lot more on this piece. And it's certainly something to consider, especially if you prefer like your empreinte pieces to be a bit more subtle. So in terms of securing the stamp, it ended up being like a little bit unnecessarily, not complicated, but like annoying. So our flight that day was around 2:30, and we ended up getting to the airport early because I knew that I wanted to go into the store. I needed to get my VAT papers for the passport holder stamped. We of course also had to make it through security, which honestly took no time at all. Similarly, the VAT process didn't really take much time either. It usually doesn't take more than like 10 minutes. But yeah, I just wanted to allow myself enough time to do everything that I needed to do. So by the time I got into the store, it was about like just under 2 hours before boarding. I had decided to buy the Rosalie coin purse before actually going into store. So when I went in, I asked to see it, checked it out, said okay. And before the SA was helping me went to pack it up, I asked if I would also be able to get the airport hot stamp on my passport cover. And she basically said, yeah, definitely, but when's your flight? Because the person who can do it isn't in right now. I told her, well, my flight's at 2:30. We'll probably have to board a bit before that. And she said, okay, well, the person should be here by 1, so you can come in at 1. She was super nice about it, really friendly. She didn't seem to have any issue with me coming back to get the stamp. The vibe I was getting from her was positive overall. So we left, we went to eat, sit down for a bit, and then I went back like a few minutes after 1. And it was really weird because I approached the same person who was helping me before, and she like acted like that conversation never happened. Like she had no idea what I was talking about. And I get that you're working at the airport, you see a ton of people all the time. You might not retain faces for long, but we had a very specific conversation less than an hour prior, so it didn't really make sense to me why what I was saying wasn't clicking. But then she went to the side to talk to like 3 other associates, and then she came back. She's like, oh, well, no, they're not here yet. So I was like, okay, no worries. I'll come back then, like in 10-15 minutes or something. And then when I ended up going back, it was like, again, the same weird vibe. Like, it almost felt like they didn't want to help me. Like, they didn't want to do the service at all and they just wanted to get rid of me. It was so weird. And I think it was weird because I kept approaching the same lady that had originally helped me. So that shift in demeanor from the same person was just so unexpected and like off-putting, especially given that our original interaction was like so positive and friendly. And I would kind of understand if, for example, I was coming in and interrupting them while they were with clients, but they weren't. They were all kind of just dispersed across the front of the store with their hands behind their back, like waiting for people to come in. So yeah, like after repeating that I had come back again for the hot stamp, the sales associate was like confused for a sec. She stepped aside with again like 2 or 3 other colleagues. They were like whispering, like it was weird. Unfortunately, I wasn't close enough to hear what they were saying, but it was just like it was weird. And then she went like she took a few steps to closer to the back of the store, like around where the machine was, to talk to a sales associate there. And then she came back to me and she's like, "Okay, well, this person will help you with the hot stamp." But get this, that very person had been there since my original visit. And I know that not all sales associates are trained to use the hot stamping machine, but when my original SA approached that other SA to do the hot stamp, she nodded in agreement without issue. So I would take that to mean that she doesn't have any problem using the hot stamp machine. And of course, I don't berate sales associates, so I didn't say this out loud, but my thinking at the time was, okay, well, if this person is doing the hot stamp now and she's been here since my initial visit, then why couldn't she have just done this like an hour ago? Because I had seen her there previously, also not really doing anything because the store was honestly quite empty. Like, why all of this back and forth and like weird hush hush to the side conversations? It was just like really weird. And to be fair, if they didn't really want to do the service, they could have just told me that from the beginning. Yes, I would have been really disappointed because I had been waiting to get that stamp from the year prior, but I would have just like not bought the Rosalie coin purse. Not to mention, getting a hot stamp on an SLG is a free service. So even, buying something just to get the hot stamp, I feel like was more than enough to justify me asking for a second one. Because I do know that people will go in and ask for additional hot stamps beyond the one hot stamp that you're quote unquote allowed without buying anything. So, like, maybe for the store, it's not worth it for them to provide that service. In that case, I don't know. But in my case, I bought something, asked if I would be able to get an additional hot stamp. They told me okay, and then proceeded to give me the runaround. So it was just a really weird experience. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm really glad I got it because I had been waiting to get that hot stamp since I had seen it the year prior. But at that point, I was still waiting for a special passport holder to be released to start my hot stamp collection in. So that's why I didn't get it at the time. And because honestly, like we have been to Rome so often over the last few years that I don't know when our next trip there will be, just because, I want to diversify our destinations. So I'm glad I was able to get it and get it out of the way during this last trip, despite the time crunch and that really weird experience with the staff. So, like I said earlier, this next item is from Rome, but it came to me shortly before I ended up in Rome. Basically, what happened was my partner's brother ended up getting married, and him and his new wife spent their honeymoon in Rome a few weeks before we went to Rome. And they brought this beauty back for me. Because I had been planning to buy this item on my own trip to Rome, I was keeping a close eye on the inventory in the Rome stores because I was afraid this item would sell out before I got there. And you guys know that I prefer buying my bags in Europe just because of the lower pricing in general. So I was really set on buying it in Italy. And of course, it ended up going out of stock in all three of the main stores in the city center. However, while my partner's brother and his wife were in the city, it remained in stock at the airport store. So I asked them if they'd mind checking it out before leaving the country. They very kindly agreed, and it actually ended up coming back into stock in the city stores before their departure date. So they ended up getting it from one of those stores during like one of their last shopping days. But let me just show you what it is before I go into more detail. It is the Louis Vuitton mini bum bag in empreinte leather in the color sand with gold hardware. I have absolutely loved my black empreinte leather mini bum bag, and I've used it so much over the last year and a half that I've had it. And so when I saw this color come out last spring, summer, oh my god, I knew that I had to have it. It's honestly just so pretty. It's this really lovely light tan color, but it has kind of like pinky undertone. So in certain lights, it actually kind of looks very, very, very pale pink. Yeah, I think it's just so nice. And I do still want the cream version because it is lighter. And then that way I'll have kind of like a trifecta. Honestly, I just could not resist adding this one to my collection. I think it is so pretty and I am so happy with it. And just to be clear, I did not send the newlyweds out to do my shopping during their honeymoon. All I asked them to do was check at the airport before they left, but they decided to check one of the city stores before their trip ended instead. And when they called me from the store, of course, I was so grateful, but I was also shocked because I wasn't expecting them to pick it up so soon. Thankfully, there were no quality or structural issues with this bag like the ones that I encountered when purchasing my original black mini bum bag. But funnily enough, this bag was purchased from the same sales associate who sold me my original black mini bum bag. And I say original because if you remember, I did end up having to exchange that one. And that happened randomly too. Like I didn't refer them to her or anything. To be honest, I didn't really have the best experience with that store or with her afterwards when I brought up some issues that I noticed with the bag and wanted to have it exchanged. But that's besides the point. I just thought that was a funny coincidence. Anyway, I love this bag. I think it's so pretty. I love the color. I have no regrets whatsoever. prefer, although I haven't really been able to use it as much as I wanted to. It's like the first time I've ever bought a duplicate, but I mean, if I were to buy a duplicate of any bag, it would have to be the mini bum bag because I have gotten so much use out of that bag. It is so practical, it's cute, it's versatile, and now I love having it in a lighter, more like summery color. And again, I'm still very much interested in also adding the cream version to my collection as well. And, if I'm feeling crazy enough this summer, I just might do that. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, friends. I really hope you enjoyed today's long overdue Rome haul video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!